In Skyrim, I remember how one time my illusion mage broke into the house of a lovely merchant couple late at night. I used calming magics on one of them so they would just watch while I took out my knife and murdered their sleeping spouse. It's hard to explain to my non-gaming co-workers how doing things like this, even just virtually, doesn't make me some kind of sicko. But the nature of games enables ordinary people to be psychopaths in a way that real-world interactions don't. The psychopath's lack of empathy and remorse are practically a description of behaviour in a virtual world where no one feels real and there are no lasting consequences. So in the safe imaginary space that games provide, I still find myself wanting to experiment with and experience the power that comes from playing with the darker side of our human nature. Lots of old RPGs tried to give me the illusion that I could be evil, but ultimately failed to deliver.
The lives of thousands of innocent people hang in the balance. But if that is not enough to garner your loyalty, know that you will be greatly rewarded.
It wasn't really until I played Bethesda's open-world RPGs that I found I could really be evil in games. They're full of random NPCs you can murder for hats, and full of systems and AI that allow you to mess with them. And crucially, because everything including the main quest line is optional, you're not forced into breaking character by doing good things to progress the story. Skyrim was actually pretty tame, unless you took it upon yourself to experiment, but Fallout 3 practically begs you to go down the low road from the very first instant. But its style of psychopathy was tongue-in-cheek, comic book. It was more Dr. Evil than actually evil.
Who are you again? Oh, all right. This thing's heavy. I'm a slave now? Don't kill me, please. I'm going.
But as games become more real, as their characters and worlds become more convincing, that kind of behaviour just doesn't feel right anymore. You may think that the division between these two states is some kind of huge grey area, but for me it's as clear as the thin brown line that exists between Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. The two games use many of the same assets and exist in the same world, but ironically, while there is much more evil in New Vegas, I found it impossible to even consider being evil myself. New Vegas took its world much more seriously. It was so much more real than Fallout 3. It was a nice change, but as a result it wasn't fun to be evil, it was horrible. Unlike Fallout 3 or Skyrim, it wasn't comic book, it was crimes against humanity.
No, please, don't leave me here!
The reality of the world and the suffering of those poor NPCs brought the game over some illogical empathy borderline. It wasn't the only sequel to take its series over that line either. Eventually I became desensitized, but I actually felt guilty the first time I hit a pedestrian in Grand Theft Auto 4 because of the realistic way they moved and reacted. But back on the other side of that line in earlier games, I eventually just got bored of my serial killers and retired them. There was nowhere for them to develop and nowhere for the story to end, because there was no one that could oppose them. There was no Clarice Starling, no James Dokes, no Mills and Somerset. Open world games let you be evil, but don't really provide a satisfying conclusion like a real serial killer game with a proper antagonist would. If they made a game of the TV show Hannibal, I'm almost sure they would pick Will Graham as the protagonist, but I've been the detective so many times before. I want to be the psychopath. I prefer it if they didn't go into detail of the actual murdering. Doing so would either cross that invisible empathy line or make a farce of it all by going all Surgeon Simulator. But I'd really like to play the game where I choose and stalk my prey, select the time, place and method, where I have to leave no evidence, mislead my friends, manipulate the investigation, and eat anyone who suspects me. I don't think any sane developer would go after this idea though. It would generate more controversy than sales and attract the awful Murder Simulator tag, probably being the first game to actually deserve it. Perhaps attaching it to a licensed and established fiction like Hannibal, Dexter or Jack the Ripper would lend it enough artistic license to get away with it, but I wouldn't bet on that. In the end of these things, the bad guys usually get what's coming to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You saved my life. Bless you.